In the world of automotive engineering, there's an unwritten rule. Bigger is better. More displacement means more power. But what if I told you about an engine that defied this logic? An engine so small it could fit in a suitcase, yet so smooth it rivaled Mill's 3 times its size. An engine that Subaru stubbornly refused to abandon when every competitor chose the easier path. This is the story of the Subaru EN07, a 4-cylinder masterpiece displacing just 660 cubic centimeters, an engine that powered everything from delivery vans scaling mountain roads to rally cars conquering the Safari Rally. An engine that represents Subaru's unwavering commitment to doing things differently, even when it made absolutely no sense. This is the story of the legendary Key Boxer, or rather, the engine everyone thought was a boxer, but wasn't. To understand the EN07, we first need to understand Japan's K-car regulations. Born from post-war necessity, these tiny tax-advantaged vehicles have strict size and displacement limits. In 1989, Japan's Ministry of Transport revised these standards, increasing the maximum engine displacement from 550 cc's to 660 cc's. For most manufacturers, this was simple. Honda, Suzuki, Daihatsu, they all adopted 3-cylinder engines. Compact, efficient, and easy to package. It was the obvious choice. But Subaru wasn't interested in obvious. By 1989, Subaru had spent decades perfecting the horizontally opposed Boxer engine. It was their identity, their signature, the engine layout that gave their larger cars low centers of gravity and buttery smooth power delivery. But there was a problem. Boxer engines are wide, really wide, and in the tiny engine bays of K cars, width is a luxury you simply don't have. So, Subaru made a choice. They would build a 4-cylinder inline engine for their K cars. Not a Boxer, just a conventional inline 4. But they would engineer it with the same obsessive attention to detail they applied to their Boxer engines. They called it the EN series. And the 660cc version, the EN07, would go on to become one of the most over-engineered, underappreciated engines in automotive history. The EN07 story begins with its predecessor, the EK series. These were air-cooled 2-cylinder engines that powered Subaru's K cars from 1958. By the 1970s, they'd evolved into water-cooled designs like the EK23, displacing 544 cc. 2 cylinders were adequate for the era. They were simple, cheap to manufacture, and met the power requirements of the time. But they vibrated. Oh, how they vibrated. 2-cylinder engines, by their nature, produce significant primary imbalance. Every combustion event sends a shudder through the vehicle. It was acceptable, but barely. In 1989, with the new 660cc regulations on the horizon, Subaru's engineers faced a decision. They could follow the industry and develop a 3-cylinder engine. 3 cylinders offer better balance than 2, decent power, and excellent fuel economy. Instead, they built a 4-cylinder engine displacing just 547 cc for the EN05, which would quickly become the 658cc EN07. It was a remarkably unconventional choice. 4 cylinders in such a tiny displacement meant individual cylinders of just 165 cc's each. For perspective, that's smaller than many motorcycle cylinders. The bore was just 56 millimeters, with a stroke of 66.8 millimeters, creating a decidedly long stroke configuration that prioritized torque over high RPM power. But here's why it mattered. A 4-cylinder engine is inherently balanced. The pistons move in perfect harmony, canceling out each other's vibrations. Where competitors' 3-cylinder engines buzzed and hummed, the EN07 purred. It was refinement that had no business existing in a 660cc K-car engine. Subaru even gave it a marketing name, the Clover 4. They cast a 4-leaf clover into the cylinder head to distinguish it from their 3-cylinder EF engines. It was a small touch, but it communicated their pride in this tiny engineering marvel. Let's talk about what made the EN07 special. On paper, it's unremarkable. A 658cc inline-4 with a bore of 56 millimeters and stroke of 66.8 millimeters. Single overhead cam. 8 valves. Nothing groundbreaking. But the execution? That's where Subaru flexed their engineering muscles. The EN07 used a bore pitch of just 62.5 millimeters, the distance between cylinder centerlines. For context, Honda's 3-cylinder engines of the era used 70 to 75 millimeter bore pitch. Subaru managed to pack 4 cylinders into less space than most manufacturers needed for 3. The block was compact, lightweight, and engineered with the kind of precision typically reserved for much larger engines. The engine came in an alphabet soup of variants, each tailored to specific applications. The EN07A featured a carburetor, simple, reliable, perfect for commercial vehicles. The EN07E upgraded to electronic multi-point fuel injection, improving efficiency and emissions. The EN07C and EN07F variants serve the workhorse Sambar truck, with emphasis on low-end torque for hauling loads up Japan's steep mountain roads. But where the EN07 truly shined was in its forced induction applications. Most K manufacturers use turbochargers. They're efficient, well-understood technology, but turbochargers create lag, that momentary delay before boost arrives. In a 660cc engine making maybe 64 horsepower, turbo lag is like waiting for a sneeze. It's there, it's annoying, and it disrupts the driving experience. Subaru chose superchargers instead. Mechanical superchargers are belt-driven, providing instant boost from the moment you touch the throttle. No lag, no waiting, just immediate linear power delivery. The EN07W variant used a low-pressure supercharger without an intercooler, what Subaru marketing called mild charge. It produced 58 horsepower at 6,000 RPM and 74 Newton-meters of torque at 4,400 RPM. Enough to make these tiny K cars feel surprisingly peppy in urban traffic. The EN07Z stepped up the game with an intercooled supercharger, producing 64 horsepower at 6,400 RPM and 84 Newton-meters of torque at 4,400 RPM. This was the maximum allowed under Japan's K-car regulations, a gentleman's agreement that capped horsepower at 64. Though, let's be honest, most manufacturers quietly exceeded this in reality. Then came the EN07X, the flagship, the hot rod. The EN07X powered the Subaru Vivio RXR, and it represented everything Subaru learned about extracting maximum performance from minimal displacement. It featured a dual overhead cam design, 16 valves instead of 8. The valve train was unique. The timing belt drove only the exhaust camshaft, with the intake cam driven synchronously from there. This compact arrangement, inspired by Toyota's designs, allowed for a narrower valve angle and more compact combustion chamber. The valves used a direct push system with high lift cams, maximizing airflow despite the tiny cylinder volume. An intercooled supercharger forced air into these tiny combustion chambers, and the result was 64 horsepower at 7,200 RPM, yes, 7,200 RPM from a supercharged engine, and 106 Newton-meters of torque at 4,000 RPM. To put this in perspective, the EN07X made 97 horsepower per liter, naturally aspirated, well, supercharged, but without the efficiency of a turbo, in 1992, in a kei car engine. Honda's VTEC B16A, celebrated as one of the great naturally aspirated four-cylinders, made 100 horsepower per liter. But it displaced 1.6 liters and revved to 8,400 RPM. The EN07X achieved 97% of that specific output from an engine 1/10 the size. The cylinder head required special attention due to heat management. In such a compact engine, the cylinder farthest from the radiator, cylinder number 4, tended to run hot. Subaru redesigned the cooling channels for the Pleo application to address this, ensuring long-term reliability even under hard use. And these engines were used hard. The Viveo RXR, weighing just 710 kilograms in front-wheel drive form and 750 kilograms with all-wheel drive, was a rocket. 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 8.5 seconds. That might not sound impressive today, but remember, this was a 660cc kei car. It was competing against Honda Beats, Suzuki Cappuccinos, and Mazda AutoZam AZ1s. And it held its own. More impressively, it did so with the immediate throttle response of a supercharger. No lag, no waiting, just instant, linear acceleration from idle to redline. Press the throttle, and the car lunged forward. Shift gears, and the power was already there, waiting. It transformed the driving experience. The EN07's capabilities weren't just marketing hype. Subaru put their money where their mouth was, entering Viveos in international motorsport. In 1992, a private entrant ran a Viveo RXR with the EN07X engine in the Paris-Beijing Marathon Raid. Most observers gave it no chance. A tiny kei car with a 660cc engine competing against professional teams with massive off-road machines? It was David versus Goliath. During the prologue stage, the Viveo was faster than the Mitsubishi Pajero Works team. Let that sink in. A 660cc kei car outpaced factory-backed rally raid vehicles. The car ultimately broke its suspension after a week of punishment, but it made it to the finish line unofficially after repairs. For a kei car, that was a triumph. But the real showcase came in 1993. Noriyuki Koseki, former factory driver and founder of Subaru Technica International, decided to promote the Viveo by entering 3 examples in the WRC Safari Rally. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was the Safari Rally, the toughest rally in the world. A race that destroys purpose-built machines, let alone tiny kei cars. Koseki fielded 3 Viveo RXRs, driven by Masashi Ishida, local driver Patrick Nieru, and, here's the kicker, up-and-coming WRC star Colin McRae in his Safari debut. These were the sportiest Viveos, with the EN07X engine, supercharged, intercooled, producing 64 horsepower and tackling some of the most brutal terrain on Earth. They completed the rally. They became champions of their class. A 660cc kei car with 4-wheel drive and a supercharged 4-cylinder engine proved itself against the African wilderness. It was a testament not just to the Viveo's engineering, but to the EN07's fundamental robustness. The EN07's versatility was its secret weapon. Subaru didn't just build one engine and call it a day. They created a comprehensive family, each variant optimized for its specific application. The naturally aspirated EN07E with electronic fuel injection powered the everyday Viveo. It produced 52 horsepower in manual transmission cars, adequate for urban driving, frugal on fuel. The ECVT, electronically controlled continuously variable transmission, versions made 48 horsepower, sacrificing a bit of power for even better fuel economy. The EN07F and EN07V powered the Sambar commercial vehicles. These were the workhorses, engines designed for durability and low-end torque. They revved lower, prioritizing pulling power over peak horsepower. Subaru even gave the delivery service versions a crimson ceramic coating on the rocker cover, marking them as high-durability variants built to withstand years of hard commercial use. The EN07U added electronic multi-point injection and a small intercooler to the mild-charged EN07W. This variant found its home in the Subaru Pleo, where it balanced performance and efficiency for family buyers who wanted a bit more pep than the base engine but didn't need the full-bore performance of the supercharged variants. Then there was the EN07D, a DOHC variant with active valve control system, variable valve timing. This was Subaru bringing modern technology to the kei car segment, optimizing valve timing for better torque across the RPM range. It produced 54 horsepower, but with a broader, more flexible power band. By 2009, the EN07 powered 3 of the 5 most fuel-efficient kei car passenger cars in Japan. It topped the list for the third consecutive year. Think about that. An engine architecture from 1989, continuously refined, remained competitive in fuel economy against modern three-cylinder designs 20 years later. That's not luck, that's engineering excellence. Why did Subaru persist with 4 cylinders when 3 would have been simpler, lighter, cheaper? The answer lies in Subaru's core philosophy: smoothness and balance. 3-cylinder engines have inherent primary imbalance. They vibrate. Modern 3-cylinders use balance shafts to counteract this, but balance shafts add weight, complexity, and parasitic losses. They're a band-aid solution to a fundamental problem. 4-cylinder engines are naturally balanced. The pistons work in pairs, their forces canceling out. No balance shafts needed, no extra complexity, just pure mechanical harmony. For a manufacturer obsessed with the boxer engine, the ultimate expression of mechanical balance, accepting vibration in their K cars was unthinkable. So they built a 4-cylinder engine small enough to fit K regulations, but smooth enough to meet Subaru standards. By 2012, the EN07's run was over. Subaru, now partially owned by Toyota, made the strategic decision to exit K-car production. The reasoning was sound. K-cars are almost exclusively sold in Japan. For a small manufacturer like Subaru, dedicating resources to a domestic-only segment didn't make financial sense when they could focus on their core competency, all-wheel drive vehicles with horizontally opposed engines. The 7th-generation Sambar became a rebadged Daihatsu Hijet. The EN07, after 23 years of production, was retired. Subaru began using Daihatsu 3-cylinder engines in their K vehicles. The irony? The very 3-cylinder configuration Subaru had stubbornly refused to adopt in 1989. But the EN07's legacy lived on. It had proven that small engines didn't have to be compromised engines, that refinement wasn't reserved for luxury cars, that with enough engineering care, a 660cc 4-cylinder could be as smooth as engines 3 times its size. Let's run through the numbers one more time because they deserve appreciation. Base specifications: displacement 658 cc's, configuration inline 4, bore time stroke 56 mm by 66.8 mm, bore pitch 62.5 mm, compression ratio 8.5 to 1 to 10.1 to 1 depending on variant, valve train SOHC 8 valve or DOHC 16 valve, naturally aspirated variants, power 38 to 53 horsepower, torque 52 to 58 Nm. Supercharged SOHC variants EN07Z, power 64 horsepower at 6400 RPM, torque 84 Nm at 4400 RPM. Supercharged DOHC variants EN07X, power 64 horsepower at 7200 RPM, torque 106 Nm at 4000 RPM. Fuel delivery, carburetor, early variants, single-point injection EGI or SPI, multi-point injection MPEI. Applications: Subaru Rex, final generation, Subaru Vivio, all variants, Subaru Sambar, trucks and vans, Subaru Plio, first generation, Subaru Roo with variable valve timing, Subaru Stella. The Subaru EN07 will never be a collector's engine. It's not going to power any resto-mod builds or backyard race cars. There's no aftermarket support, no performance parts catalogs, no YouTube tutorials on how to build a 1,000-horsepower EN07. And that's fine, because the EN07 wasn't built for glory. It was built to serve, to haul goods up mountain passes, to ferry families through congested Tokyo streets, to prove that even in Japan's smallest, most regulated vehicle segment, engineering excellence still mattered. For 23 years, the EN07 did its job with the same mechanical sympathy Subaru brings to every engine they build. It was smooth when it had no right to be smooth. It was reliable when 7,200 RPM redlines from a supercharged 660cc engine should have been a recipe for disaster.
It was efficient when 4 cylinders were supposed to be a handicap. The legendary KE Boxer that wasn't actually a boxer, but somehow captured everything a boxer should be: balanced, refined, and utterly uncompromising. This has been the story of the Subaru EN07. The engine nobody talks about, but everybody who drove one remembers. The little 4-cylinder that could, and did, for more than 2 decades. The Clover 4, Japan's best-kept automotive secret.